episode. Thanks for everyone joining on already.
Good morning.
Alessio, good to have you on. If you
Hi,
didn't
Alessio.
realize, this is our 200th episode of Morning Minutes with myself, Michael Bergio, Mark Novak. And today we're going to be talking about price compression, loss evasion, and about the psychology of people would rather, it hurts more to lose $5 than the gain of happiness to win $5, to find $5. And how does that relate to property, Mark? We're not psychiatrists.
This is massive. Can you say that again? It is...
Yep. Loss evasion refers to people's tendency to prefer to avoiding losses for losses to the acquiring equivalent gain. It is better not to lose $5 than to find $5. How does that relate to property?
It is better to lose $5 than to... Sorry, it is worse to lose $5 than to find $5. That is a big, big thing in our business, in the psychology of selling. And I've got to tell you, if people can harness this psychology, they will be better negotiators in their entire life. It will make people hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, millions, if they harness this concept of psychology that we're just about to tell you about.
Yeah, so especially, and I'll give you a live example of this, price compression. We do talk about it a fair bit. So let's say you've got a 3-bedroom unit and you're looking to upsize for your family home. Now, a 3-bedroom unit was $800,000. Let's say peak market $800,000, and the house you're going to buy was 1.5. But let's say we had a pandemic like a flu, and the market has now dropped 10%, which means that $800,000 unit is down $80,000, so it's worth $720. But the home,
that hurts. That really, really hurts. So I've just lost 5 or 10% value on my property. I am in a world of pain.
Yep. And then the house you were going to buy was 1.5. It's lost 10% as well, $150,000. But you would sort of think to yourself, well, actually, if you're selling, your total combined would have been 1.5 plus 800. Would have been, you would have sold that for 800 and bought for 1.5, but now it's 80 grand less. But but then someone would think from the outside, going, hang on, yeah, but you're buying for 150 grand less. You're now $70,000 better off. Well done. You should be happy. But no, loss evasion tells us otherwise. Our tendency as humans tells us otherwise.
Yep. So guys and girls, you got to be really careful on this one, because you can become quite powerful if you understand this and you actually harness this. So I'm always saying it to clients. So they're selling their unit for less money than because the market's come down a little bit. But I'm always saying to clients, it's okay. Don't worry. You're buying for a lot less money. They go, what do you mean? I said, well, the house you're buying has come down more than the unit you're selling. The net effect is your mortgage for the next 30 years, your changeover is going to be less. Now, our clients don't feel good about that. All they seem to remember is that they're selling their unit for less. So pre-COVID, my unit was worth, what was the figure? 800K. After COVID, my unit was worth potentially 700K or 720. So I took a 10% hit. That just sits in my head so heavily, and psychologically, that's called
loss evasion.
Loss evasion. That is so much more damning than finding 800,000.
Or it could be loss aversion. Aversion. I'm not the best, guys. I'm trying.
How do you spell it?
Aversion. Loss version. Aversion.
Aversion. That's aversion. That's aversion. Yeah, well, you know, none of us did that good at school. Evasion. Evasion is EVASION. Aversion. Thanks, Virg. Thank you for that. Should we start off right at the beginning again? You gone red.
I'm, I'm
You
okay.
gone bright
It's
red.
all good. It's the lighting. I'm all good. It's the main thing. I picked it up and I realized my errors, and I know what's not my strong suit. But
Guys,
you
don't
guys get the
hold us
point out
back
there.
for us. Look, the message, the power is in the message, not in the spelling or the pronunciation, but the power is in the message. And I've got to say, as a real estate agent, we're constantly explaining this to people. People can't harness it. People can't get it. But a stockbroker gets it.
Yeah. So you know what, Mark? You know what the people end up doing? They go, "No, I'm not going to sell. I'm going to wait a year when my unit's back to 800." But then the house is worth 1.5. Now, there's a couple reasons which I'll spin off where it's actually better to do the transaction when it's sort of lower. One, Mark, your loan will be lower. Your loan will be lower.
That's the thing. When your changeover is less. So that pre-COVID sell a unit, buy a house example, you're left with a mortgage of I think it was 150. Your mortgage is swings by 70 grand difference, right? I think that's the example you gave us. So that mortgage sticks with you for 30 years, 25 years. So if you can get that changeover right, sell low, buy lower, your changeover and you're holding that mortgage for 30 years is going to be less. So we've got clients that have just come out of a unit and gone into a house, and instead of taking on a $500,000 mortgage, they've taken on a $400,000 mortgage because of what we're talking about today.
Yes,
it's
loss
aversion.
Loss aversion, and that compounds over 30 years. So that 70 could be really 200,000 when it compounds. That's 1 point.
It's a 20% swing. It's potentially, depending on the price you're buying back in at, it could be as much as a 20 or 30% swing, selling in a stinky market, taking a hit on your place and buying for a bigger hit.
Point 2, serviceability. Theoretically, you may not be able to service a loan at a 1.5 level because of income and brokerage. But now, when it drops down, you may be able to service it as well. So it may allow you to buy a more expensive property or get into the property that you would like.
That's big.
Point 2. That's a big point.
That's huge. So suddenly, because with COVID, if prices came back 5 or 10%, that could be enough to actually your broker to say, you can now do the deal. That's a huge point. You weren't eligible, but you know what? How many people would go back after being slapped on the bum? You know, if you didn't get your loan in February, what's the chance that you'd line up right now? Pretty remote, because you'd be feeling pretty negative about COVID, but it could be an excellent time to line up to the bank because of what you just said.
Yep. You know what, Mark? Another topic would be that I think a lot of people may apply for, especially if they go through a bank may apply for one loan, they don't get it, and then they give up and assume they can't get a loan. I think we need to do a topic on so many banks have so many different variables and criterias to get loans. So that's the importance of using a broker. But like what you said, who would line back up again? But I think even on the best of times, if they've got an application, their broker or the bank may not apply them for the correct loan. They get knocked back and then they go, I can't buy and walk away. So I think that's a great topic as well. Just want to say hello to Sarah, Lee, having you on. Let's go. Everyone's on. LJ, Hooker Home Loans. Yes, I can help with this. What a legend. Yeah, just as we bring it up, so good. Thanks for watching. Price evasion. Aversion. We're talking loss aversion.
But it's a big psychology, guys, because you can really capitalize. And you know what? The only difference between the champions out there and the people that are not the losers out there, the losers is the psychology. You know what I mean? So what we're talking about with this pricing swing and the loss aversion psychology, and just for anyone who's just tuned in, what we're actually talking about is a human. If they find $5, they feel good. If they save $5, they feel unbelievable. So there's when you take a hit, you really, really hurt and you bleed when you take a win for the same value. That it doesn't. The swing's not as equal. The swing's not as equal.
And I'm just putting the Wikipedia link in, guys, so you can have a full read of what we're talking about. And once you understand this, then you can tweak your marketing around it as well. So the big point of this is you really got to know what your clients are doing. Like, I think it is pretty basic in real estate. Find out their why. If they're selling that unit to buy a house and go through, and especially in a market that could be on the downturn, then have this conversation with them. It's the importance of sitting down with your client and going, what are your property goals? What are the lifestyle goals? Because, Mark, it is pretty, it can really hurt families when they have that mindset of, now I'm not going to sell it for $720 when last month it was worth $800. So my 3 kids in this 2-bedroom unit are just not going to move out. We're not going to get that family home because it will hurt too much to know I've sold for 80 grand less, rather than looking at the bigger picture,
the positive,
and knowing that you're actually buying for 150 grand less and you're $70,000 better off. But no, some people will get caught up on that 80 grand loss and they won't look at the 70 grand gain, and they won't look at having that new family home and the larger family home for the kids, for the children.
Oh, the kids. Now, the psychology is called loss aversion. That's that that's that brain blockage that kills people. The actual, what we call it in our industry, is why I've got the machine behind me, the compactor, the steamroller. What we call it is price compression in our offices. So with price compression, and again, if I give that great example, I'm not getting the 8. I had an offer of 8 in January, 800K. Now I've only got an offer of 720K. That really sucks. I'm down 80K. That really, really hurts. Price aversion. Now, the house that I looked at back in January, February, when I had 800K, that place that I looked at, well, that's now that was 1.5. That's now 1.35. So I'm going to take a chip for 80K, and I'm actually going to buy something for 150K less. Now, when you break it down, you go, yeah, duh, of course, that's genius, because you're taking a mortgage on for 30 years. Most people don't feel like that. They don't feel like that. And that's that aversion that we're talking about. That what is it called again? Price aversion.
Price aversion. And I was thinking about,
that's what price aversion is. Sucks.
I'm just looking at some examples. It's almost like if you get a $5 discount, you're like, thanks. But if someone hits you with a $5 surcharge, you're like, no, I'm out of here. Like, it's just how you
rage. You can rage. So when you are, if you get charged on a credit card $5 for a $5 purchase, you'll rage. But if you get that discount of $5, you don't rage happily.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
It does. And that's the point of it today. And when you understand that with marketing, it's pretty good. Anything else you want to add, Mark? I think, do we want to tailor into that other topic we were talking about? What was it? What was that? We said we had price aversion, and I think the biggest thing was look at the net figure. What was the other thing?
And I just think keep it simple, guys. Like if the people watching out there can get this right, like this is a absolute game changer in philosophy, because it's really the astute business person, and it's like buying a car. You look at the net, what you buy for, what you sell for, whatever. But the net, if your net is huge, that's what you should be chasing. Your net result.
Yeah, don't just look at one half of the equation, what you're selling for or what you're buying. Look at what you buy and sell for, the net figure, then make the decision. Because there's 2 transactions here, guys. And I think a lot of the time, people only look at one side and then they make their action based on one half. No, I'm not selling for 80 grand less, not doing a transaction. But when you go, actually, sell for 80 grand less, buy for 150 grand less, 70 grand better off, I'm going to do it. It's look at the whole picture.
I always say to clients, when you don't have to sell, you're a better seller.
That's the one.
And when you don't have to buy, you're a better buyer. When you are a cool cat selling, there's no Mr. Desperado. You always get significantly more money. When you are a cool cat buying and you just do not care and you've got the ability to walk away, you are such a better buyer. So if you're buying under duress and that, you're always going to get screwed. Yeah. So keep time on your side when you're doing this buy and sell that we're talking about.
Beautiful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for our 200th episode. We should have done 200 in the back, actually. The number 200.
There should have been a 200 rather than a steamroller.
Yeah.
But remember, guys, the keywords out of today are
loss aversion.
Price aversion, not evasion. Price aversion, right? Yes. So you got to consider. So people will get their emotions will fly when they save the money from not paying a $5 surcharge. But if they get a $5 discount, they don't get as excited. Yeah. That's price aversion. Have you got what's the psychological one you just read out before? Can you read that again?
So it's price compression is the deal transaction, and then loss aversion is the phrase in psychology, which I've put in the chat. So that is basically loss aversion implies that one who loses $100 will lose more satisfaction than another person will gain satisfaction from a $100 windfall. In marketing, the use of trial periods and rebates tries to take advantage of buyers' tendency to value the good more after the buyer incorporates it in the status quo. We see this all the time, guys. Stamp duty off, this rebate. This is what it's talking about. So I'm going to put that in there.
You know what an example of that is? We sell a hell of a lot of Meriton apartments, Meriton stock. And when I say to people, you pay no stamp duty.
They love it.
They love it. They go bananas. And I'm thinking, if it's $1 million apartment, just give them 40 grand off. No. If you're not paying stamp duty, that is a big win with Meriton, with some buyers. That's a perfect example of loss aversion.
Thank you everyone for joining. Chad Fortin Media, great content. Super Saturday said yes. Alrighty guys, we'll be back on Monday live morning breakfast at Novak. Mark will be live for that segment at 8:30 this morning as well.
Love you. See ya.
See you legends. Bye.
See you.